I'm just approaching the edge of sleep when it happens again. The images behind my eyelids go from blurry and chaotic to ethereal and peaceful as dreamland comes to claim me. But before that heavy warmth can envelop me, something touches my arm. My eyelids shoot open and, for a moment, I think I see a dark figure with a horribly pale face standing there next to my bed, staring down at me. But it's there for only a fraction of a second, disappearing so fast I assume it's a trick of my vision, a product of the fast transition period as my eyes struggle to make out the darkness of the room. I sit up slowly in bed, looking around. The first time something touched my arm, I chalked it up to my mind playing tricks on me, like the feeling of falling you get when going to sleep sometimes. But now I know that's not the case. Something is with me in this room. Hello? There's no answer. The air stirs behind me, as though someone's breathing softly on the back of my neck. Fear bolts through my body, putting every part of me on edge. Slowly, I turn my head to look behind me, and I scream. I really appreciate this, Kevin says as I help him bring a couple of his bags inside. No problem, man, I say. I've known Kevin Wynn since college. We were both pre-med at the time, both with overbearing Asian American parents. We bonded over the constant pressure to succeed that our parents placed on us. My mom and dad had come to America when they were kids, but their parents both raised them with more traditional sensibilities. The same was true of Kevin's parents, although they came to the country as young newlyweds and got their citizenship papers before Kevin was born. Of course, parents wanting their kids to succeed is universal. But since we had similar upbringings, Kevin and I got along well. And we definitely spent a lot of time venting about the pressure our parents placed on us. Unfortunately, this pressure was too much for me. I changed my major after my sophomore year, and then dropped out of college completely before the second semester of my junior year. But Kevin, he took it all the way. He's a doctor now. A surgeon, actually. His parents must have been ecstatic when he earned that title. All that pushing and prodding paid off. My parents, on the other hand, were extremely disappointed at first. They've since come around. It's not like I'm straddling the poverty line or anything. I co-own a couple of gyms with a friend who was also one of my initial investors. We do pretty well for ourselves. Still, every other time I see my mother, she has to slip in some comment about how there's still time for me to go back to medical school. These days, I laugh it off. That's just how my mom is. How's your dad? I ask Kevin as we put his stuff down in my guest bedroom. He's all right, Kevin says. He's been pretty depressed since my mom died. But that's kind of how it goes, right? Yeah, I say sadly. I guess so. How about yours? Mine are doing well, I tell him. Just getting old. Kevin nods. Hey, listen, Silas, he says. This renovation shouldn't take longer than a month or so. It'll definitely speed things up if I'm not living there while they're working, you know? No worries, man. It'll be nice to have someone around again. Since the breakup, I've had the place to myself. So, it'll be good. Kevin smiles, but he seems tired and sad. I wonder if the long hours at the hospital are getting to him. He definitely seems pale. I don't think much of it, and we go back downstairs to get the rest of his stuff. It's not until after dark that I realize how bad things are going for Kevin. Back in college, he was always pretty energetic and funny. We would crack each other up, riffing and seeing who could tell the raunchiest joke to get a rise out of the other. But after he gets settled in and comes downstairs for dinner, I notice that he seems subdued. You doing okay? I ask, sitting across from him as we eat a simple chicken and veggie dinner I made. For a moment, I think he's going to break down and spill his guts about whatever's bothering him. But he doesn't. He just says, I'm tired, that's all, and goes back to eating. Shrugging, I return my gaze to my plate. Although I try to chat with him, he only gives me 1 or 2 word answers. After dinner, he thanks me for the food and heads upstairs. I don't see or hear from him until 2 hours later, as I'm getting ready for bed. My jaw falls open, spilling foamy toothpaste spit down my chin as I hear the pained scream. After setting my toothbrush down and spitting into the sink, I run to his room and knock on the door.
Kevin, what's up? You okay?
I can hear sobbing in there, saying something like,
"Leave me alone." "Talk to me, man,"
I say.
"What's going on in there?"
After a long moment, his sobbing ceases, and I hear him come to the door. He cracks it and looks at me with damp cheeks and swollen eyelids.
"Sorry, Silas,"
he says.
"I've just been having these nightmares. I swear I don't usually scream out in the middle of the night, but this one was bad."
You sure there's nothing you want to talk about? I ask him. I'm all ears, dude. He shakes his head.
"I'm sure. Thanks."
As I turn to walk away, I know Kevin's lying to me. The lights were on in his room when I ran up, and he was fully clothed when he opened the door. So unless he was sleeping in his clothes with the lights on, I doubt he was screaming because of a nightmare. Something else is happening. Kevin is already gone when I get up the next morning, and when I get home from work, he's still gone. Long shift, I guess. I do my thing. I decompress, make dinner, and wind down for the night. As I lie in bed trying to sleep around 10:30 p.m., I hear him come in, using the spare key I gave him. I drift off to sleep without issue, but then something wakes me up several hours later. It's 1:44 a.m. I look around in the dark room to see that my bedroom door is partially open. I know I closed it when I went to bed. I always close it. A sudden chill ripples from the back of my neck down to my heels. It occurs to me that I don't really know Kevin. Not anymore. Sure, we've kept in touch over the years, getting together here and there. But for the most part, we've both been busy with our professional lives. Kevin's father never allowed him on social media. He said it was a distraction, and it seems that Kevin has kept that up even into adulthood. So we've kept up the old-fashioned way, with phone calls and texts. But in recent years, those have been few and far between. A lot can happen in a few years. Could he be suffering from some kind of mental disorder? Is the stress of his job getting to him? Do I really trust him in my house? Mostly, I wonder why in the hell he would open my door. I picture him standing over my bed as I sleep, staring down at me. The thought constricts my throat and raises my heart rate. Throwing my covers off, I get up from the bed and look around the room in the dark. He's not in here. So I move to open the door and peer out into the hall. All the lights are off, and I can see that my guest room door is closed. Padding down the hall, I pause by the door and listen. I hear Kevin breathing, slow and steady. He's asleep. Allowing myself to relax a little, I head back toward my room before deciding that I want a glass of milk. Turning around again, I walk down the hall and start down the stairs. Halfway down the stairwell, I freeze. Someone's standing in the doorway to the living room below me and to my right. I can just see the figure, who's dressed in dark clothing, out of the corner of my eye. Panic closes in on me as my mind races. What do I do? Wait for him to make a move? It's hard for me to tell, but I think he's looking up at me. He sees me. If it is a he. Gripping the stairwell railing tight, I decide it's better to face him, to turn my head and see who it is. Maybe it's really Kevin. Maybe he's sleepwalking. Maybe I heard wrong outside his room. Just as I turn my head toward the figure, it moves. It rushes straight at me, not going around to the foot of the stairs, but rushing, flying right at me. I let go of the railing and jerk backward, turning to face the thing just as it comes for me. It's a man, but I don't get a good look at his face as he moves toward me like a wraith. Instead, I focus on the wounds on his neck for the split second I can see them. Blood pours out of the cuts there, soaking his white collared shirt. He seems to phase through the stairwell railing just a second before he disappears altogether. I find myself sitting on the stairs, unable to catch my breath as I look around for the figure. When I finally get myself somewhat under control, I move back up the stairs and flip on the hallway light. Then I move downstairs, flipping on all the lights on the first floor with shaking hands. Cold sweat has sprung up all over my body. There was something familiar about the man. He was Asian, that much I saw, but I can't place him. I was too busy looking at the bloody wound on his throat. When I'm done searching the house and checking all the doors, I decide to stay up all night. I don't believe in ghosts. They're not real. But what I saw, it seemed pretty damn real to me. I distract myself by getting some work done in my home office. Then, when the sun comes up, I finally feel like I can get some sleep. It's restless sleep, but it's better than nothing. And when I get up, Kevin is gone for the day. The door to his room is closed, so I knock just in case, even though his car is gone. When there's no answer, I open the door and peek my head in. Most of his bags are still packed, sitting around the room. The closet is open and clothes are hanging from hangers, but it looks as if that's the extent of his unpacking. I honestly don't know what I'm looking for. Something that will make me realize I'm not going crazy. That I didn't just hallucinate that entire experience last night. I want to blame Kevin for what happened, but I don't know why. Something in the back of my mind, scratching at the door to my subconscious, tells me this has to do with him. When I find nothing, I move out of his room, shutting the door behind me. I work from home for the rest of the day, distracted and constantly checking behind me, expecting to see a figure with a bloody neck. By the time the sun goes down, I've managed to relax a bit more. Exhausted, I go to bed early. Kevin still isn't back when I slip under the covers and shut my eyes. I've been trying to sleep for 10 minutes or so when something touches my arm. I open my eyes and look around the room, dreading what I'll see. But there's nothing. My door is still closed and locked this time, and there's no evidence of anyone in the room. Resting my head back on my pillow, I struggle to keep my mind from going crazy. After a few minutes of deep breathing, I actually feel like I can get some rest. The images behind my eyelids go from blurry and chaotic to ethereal and peaceful as dreamland comes to claim me. But before that heavy warmth can envelop me, I feel something touch my arm again. My eyelids shoot open and, for a moment, I think I see a dark figure with a horribly pale face standing there next to my bed, staring down at me. But it's there for only a fraction of a second, disappearing so fast I assume it's a trick of my vision. I sit up slowly in bed, looking around. Hello? There's no answer. The air stirs behind me, like someone's breathing softly on the back of my neck. Fear bolts through my body, putting every part of me on edge. I turn my head to look behind me, and I scream as I see a pale, dead face inches from my own. Scrambling away from the man with the bleeding neck, I tumble backward out of bed, smacking my head on the floor. I flip over onto my hands and knees, looking at the bed only to see that the man is gone. Getting to my feet, I run over and flip the lights on. The room is empty, but there's no mistaking what I saw this time, and there's no longer any question in my mind as to who the man is. After dressing quickly, I leave the house, seeing that Kevin still isn't back yet. He must be at work. That's good. The drive to Kevin's house takes me 20 minutes. I try not to use my rear view mirror because every time I look in it, I see the dead man with the bleeding throat. His face is stuck in a pained grimace, mouth twisted open as if he's trying to scream. There's no car in the driveway, but the garage door is closed. Still, the entire house is dark, so I figure Kevin's not here. No one's here. No one alive, anyway. It takes me a few minutes to find an unlocked window. I crawl through it, finding myself in a back bedroom. I move through the house in the dark, afraid to turn on any lights in case one of the neighbors notices. There's no evidence of renovations. Kevin was lying to me about the reason for coming to stay at my house. I move to the living room, finding what I'm looking for on a side table. There are several framed photographs there, but many of them have been set on their faces. Pulling my phone out, I use it for illumination. The photos that still remain upright are those of Kevin and his mother, or his mother alone. I pick up one of the other ones, sucking in a harsh breath when I see Kevin's father in the photo. He looks different. Obviously, he doesn't have bleeding wounds in his neck in the picture, but it's him all right. It's Kevin's father.
It's real, isn't it?
Kevin's voice makes me jump, causing me to drop the picture, which cracks against the side table before falling to the floor. Somehow, I manage to hang on to my phone as I spin around to see Kevin sitting in an armchair in a dark corner of the room.
My father's haunting me.
He continues.
You've seen him, haven't you? That's why you're here. What happened, Kevin?
I ask, slipping my phone back into my pocket.
Where's your dad?
Kevin stands from the chair, and I see something in his hand glint off a narrow beam of moonlight slanting through a closed window shade. It's a surgical tool, a scalpel.
Nothing was ever good enough for him,
Kevin says.
He could never just take a minute to be proud of me. No, he always had to be working on me, always there in my ear, telling me to do better.
Kevin walks toward me as he talks. I stare at the razor-sharp tool while moving, maintaining the distance between us.
He wanted me to become a doctor, so I did it. I got my medical degree, but even that wasn't good enough. He wanted me to become a surgeon, so I did a surgical residency. And do you know what he said when I finished? Do you know what he said when I was making more money in a year than he ever made in 5 years? He said, "What's wrong with you? Why aren't you married yet?" Can you believe that? Those were his exact words. What did you do to him?
I ask, still backing away from my old friend.
Did you kill your father? After my mom died, it got even worse.
He says.
I couldn't take it anymore. I just couldn't. So I waited until he was sleeping one night, and I decided to perform a little surgery on him. I took out his fucking vocal cords. But since I didn't have all the proper equipment, I had no drugs to give him. I strapped him down, but he was still bucking and shaking, so I had to sever a few of his tendons, just so he wouldn't move so much, you know? Only then could I finish removing his vocal cords. Only then could I get his fucking voice out of my goddamn head. Only it didn't work, did it? Because I still hear him. He still speaks in my fucking ears like he's still alive. I still see him. He won't ever leave. Even from the grave, he's ruining my life.
Kevin, looking almost exactly like his father with his face frozen in an awful grimace, jams the scalpel into his left forearm and drags the blade up toward his elbow. Blood spurts out of the wound, even as I run forward and launch myself at him, tackling him to the ground. The scalpel goes clattering along the floor as I hold him down. He tries to fight me off, but he's not strong enough. That's one perk about co-owning a couple of gyms. You get to work out for free. Pulling off my shirt as I kneel on his chest, I wrap the cloth around his arm, doing my best to stop the blood flow. Just as I'm pulling out my phone, I hear a forceful knock at the door.
Police!
A man shouts.
Open the door! Help!
I shout.
Come in and help!
I hear glass breaking as the cops bust out one of the small windows on the front door to unlock it. What comes next happens fast. They separate us and get an ambulance for Kevin. I watch in handcuffs as the ambulance screams off down the street in the upscale neighborhood. I hear from the cop chatter that they got a call from a neighbor about a suspicious man breaking into the house. I guess I wasn't so sneaky after all, which means this is going to take some explaining on my part.
So what the hell was that about?
The cop holding onto my arm asks.
What happened in there?
I turn to look at him. Do you believe in ghosts, officer? The inspiration for this story comes from SCP-4435 and the SCP Foundation archives. If you liked this story, there are plenty more like it on my sister podcast, The SCP Experience. I publish regular episodes, so be sure to subscribe or follow for updates on new horror episodes on the SCP Experience podcast. Thanks for listening. If you enjoy these stories, Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and check out some more of my episodes here.